interpreting a double bar graph. Okay, so in this one, and double bar graph, I'm hoping that sounds, it gives you a description here. So we're going to have two bars on a graph, and they're going to compare similar things. And interpret means we're going to get some information from the graph. So this says there are 3 libraries in Newberry Heights. Each library has fiction and nonfiction books. The double bar graph below shows how many of each are at each library. Use the graph to answer the questions below. So let's take a look at this graph really quick. So we have number of books going up the side, and it tells us that number of books. And then along the bottom here, it shows us the 3 libraries, Downtown, Hillside Library, and Valley, because they told us there were 3 libraries. And each library has 2 types of books. They're either fiction or nonfiction. How do I know that that's fiction and this one's nonfiction? Well, there's a key right up here. Orange is fiction, and the stripe is nonfiction. So then we're going to go through and answer some questions about this. So it says, estimate the number of fiction books at Hillside. So if I scroll down here, and this pen tool is kind of messing up, I'm going to close it real quick. So if I scroll down here, it says, estimate the number of fiction books at Hillside. The number of fiction books at Hillside is between 1,200 or 1,200 and 1,500. The number is closer to 1,200 than it is 1,500. The reason we have to estimate is because it's right up here in the middle, or not even quite the middle. It looks a little lower than the middle. So it's somewhere between this 1,200 and this 1,500, or 1,500, sorry. So any answer between 1,200 and 1,350 is accepted. Well, why is that? Why is that specifically the number there? Well, between 200, 1,200, and 1,500, if I go like this, if I subtract, this tells me how many numbers I have between right here, right in between these 2 numbers. So if I subtract, I get 300. And we know, and I already kind of talked about it, it looks like it's not even quite halfway between the 2 numbers here. So if I take 300 and I divide by 2, I get 150. So 150 would be the halfway mark, and it looks close to the halfway mark, but not quite there. So we can round it all the way down to 1,200. That's an okay estimate. Or I can round it just up to the halfway mark by adding 150 books, because that would be the halfway mark. So that's where they get the 13. So if you went above the halfway mark, then you're estimating too much because it's not close to the halfway mark. So they're just saying, make sure you're paying attention, and we want it to be close. All right, which libraries have more nonfiction books than fiction books? So we just want to look at the bar graphs, and this, remember, sorry, I almost said gray. Orange is fiction, and the striped is nonfiction. And we want to know which one has more nonfiction. So we're going to look at the 2 bars and say, well, nonfiction is taller, that means it has more. Nonfiction is lower than the orange bar, so that means it has less. And this nonfiction bar is, again, lower than the orange bar because this one goes right above it. And I'll do the same thing for this one. So we want the ones where the orange bar is lower. So that way the stripe bar is a little higher because that means it has more. So we're just looking at that one to see which one has more of whichever item we're looking for. Okay, the last question said, which library has the fewest books total? So in order to know that, we would need to make sure we're looking at the numbers. So with this one, this line is above both of these other 2 lines that they left in color. So this one's a little easier to see without actually looking at the numbers or estimating anything. We may have to estimate on one of the pages if they're close enough and we can't just see it really quickly. But because these 2 are both below even one of the bars, that's going to tell me that these 2 added together are going to be more than these 2. And these 2 are definitely more than either one of these 2 because they're both quite a bit taller than both the bars. So we would go with Valley on that one. All right, so let's go ahead and start this one. Move this down here. Okay. So there are 4 high schools in North School District. The double bar graph below shows how many boys and girls are at each school. Use this graph to answer the questions below. So along the side here, we have number of students. And again, it tells me that number of students right here at the top. Along the bottom, I have the four high schools. So Beach, Hale, Adams, and Hillview, because they told us there were 4 high schools. And then I have boy and girl. How do I know it's boy and girl? I look at the key. Boy is marked with blue, girl is marked with yellow stripes. All right, so this says estimate the number of boys at Adams. So I want to go to Adams High School, and I want to estimate the boys. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to try to draw a nice straight line here. So it looks like it's close to the halfway mark here. So remember, it's in between 200 and 100. So that's where it's in between these two numbers. I'm going to subtract really quick. So we get 100. So there's 100 numbers in between here. To get from 100 to 200, we need to add 100. So this looks like it's at the halfway mark. So if I take 100 and I divide by 2, I get 50. So this is another one where it would be reasonable to say anywhere between 100 to 150. Whoops, 150, sorry. Started right 100 again there. I'll erase that. Just make it a little neater. So it's reasonable to say it's anywhere from 100 to 150. So I could use any number I want there. We don't have to get too fancy. I'm going to go ahead and call it 150 because it looks like it's pretty darn close to about halfway. All right. So which schools have more girls than boys? So let's clear this out. So we want more girls than boys. So we want to find the one where the yellow striped bar is higher. So this one is lower. This one is lower. So if I go through the bar, when I go across the top of the striped one, that tells you that that's a no. So this one doesn't go through the blue bar, so that one works. This one doesn't go through the blue bar either, so this one also works. So we want to click Adams and Hillview. All right, because they both have more girls than boys. So estimate the total number of students at Hale. So now we're going to go back. We're going to go to Hale this time. And we want to estimate the total number of students. So I need to look at here and go across and say, well, this looks like it's about halfway. Again, remember halfway, all of these will jump 100. Once you figure out what one distance is, they're all going to be the same distance. So this looks, I'm going to say about 250. It looks like it's about halfway between 200 and 300. And then girls, that lands right on top of 200. Sorry, that was a very wavy line. So I'm going to add these two together, and I'm going to get 450. So that is my estimate. So let's see if they like it. All right, so we're good to go. Next. Okay, High Byte Entertainment sells 4 types of products: radios, DVDs, CDs, and video games. The numbers sold for 2018 and 19 are shown in the double bar graph below. Use this graph to answer the questions. So let's take a look at the graph really quick. So we have number sold for the item. And then now along the bottom, we have the 4 different items: radios, DVDs, CDs, and video games. So CDs, I don't think CDs are terribly popular anymore, and DVDs, maybe. But CDs are definitely not terribly popular anymore. And then I know that we have 2018, 2019. How do I know that's what they are? Again, we have a key at the top here. 2018 is in red, 2019 is in green stripes. All right, so now we're going to answer the questions on this one. I don't know why my pen tool keeps popping up there. Oh, it likes to be at the top. All right, estimate the number of video games sold in 2018. So all of 2018. So I need to go, and remember 2018 is red, so I need to go to the top of each one of these and go, okay, I have 400 for the first one. There are 400 radios, and then this one, that looks like it's about the middle-ish, and I kind of dipped down there. So we need to figure out how many numbers are between here. It's between 400 and 200. So that is, if I subtract, there's 200 numbers between each line. Okay? And what we want to do is find the middle portion. So I want to take the 200 and divide by 2. So I get 100. So the middle portion would be 300. So I'm going to go with about 300 for DVDs. CDs looks like it goes straight across to 400 again. And video games, so this one, if I come across here, this looks like it's more than halfway between 400 and 600. So that doesn't look like the halfway mark. It would still be reasonable for me to round it down to the halfway mark. So I could round it down to 500. I could round it up to 600. So there's a couple of different options on this one. I can definitely get more specific than that, but what I think I might do, I'm going to round it up to 600 on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and go 0, 0, and then we have 7, 11, so that should be 17. I'm going to check my math really quick just to make sure I didn't do that wrong. So I have 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 6. Perfect, 17. Okay, so I get about 1,700. Oh, you know what? Was I doing that wrong the whole time? And I wonder if everyone watching the video, anyone in the video go, oh no, it just wants video games. All I needed to do was grab this number. I didn't need to do all this other crazy stuff. Goodness. See, I'm glad I went back and read it before I typed it in. All it wanted was that one number. For some reason, I grabbed all of 2018 when I read it the first time. So that's a lesson in slowing down and making sure you're reading the problem. Which products sold more in 2019 than 2018? Click all that apply. So we want them to sell more in 2019. So we want the green stripes to be taller than the red. So this is taller. That one counts. This is below. So nope. This one's also below. So no. This one is taller. So yes. So we have radios and we have video games. All right, which product sold the least over the 2 years? So let's look at the least. So if we look at, let's see, this one looks a little lower than the other ones. So this one is the second lowest after this. So if I add these two together, I'm going to get more than these two added together. And these are even taller, so I'm going to get even more than the CDs. Video games, I'm definitely going to get more than anything else. So this tells me that DVDs sold the least out of everything, just because those two bars are the shortest bars. So if I add the two shortest bars together, I'm definitely going to get less than adding bars that are already taller than both. So that's one of those silly little logic things. All right, check. You can also, oops, part C. Oh, didn't like that one. Oh, darn it, I clicked the wrong one. That was just me clicking on the wrong one here because I was talking while I was clicking. So we can also do this another way too, because we did have it right. But you can also estimate each one and then add them and see what the total is for each one if the kind of looking at the sizes doesn't make sense. Okay. Quan Corporation has 4 departments. The double bar graph below shows how many male and female employees are in each department. Use this graph to answer the questions. All right, so let's look at the graph real quick. So we have number of employees going up the side here. Along the bottom, we have these 4 different departments: advertising, marketing, production, and accounting. And then I know I have males and females. Again, how do I know that? Here's my key. I know which color matches which type. All right, estimate the number of males in marketing. So only in marketing on this one. And I'm going to change this up to a completely different color. So I'm going to change this to red. So we're going to go to marketing, and males are in blue. So I want to estimate this number right here. I'm going to come over. That looks pretty much in the middle there. I know I kind of went up a little high when I started there. Oop, and I dipped down really low right there. So we want to figure out how many numbers are between here. So we're going from 200 to 250. So that's my range there. I'm going to subtract. And then it looks like it's in the middle. So middle means divide by 2. I get 25. So it would be reasonable for me to round it down to 200 or up to 225. Really, anything in between these two numbers would be reasonable. So I'm going to go ahead and go with 225. Which departments have more females than males? All right, so more females than males. We want the green bar to be taller. So this one's not taller, nope. This one's not taller, so nope. This one is taller, so production works. And this one's not taller, so we wouldn't use that one either. So only production. All right. Estimating the total number of employees in accounting. All right. So in accounting, we have that all the way at the end here, and we want the total number of employees, so both. So this one looks like it's about the middle, as long as I don't wave too much. So I waved a lot there. So the middle would be adding 25 to the bottom or subtracting 25 from the top. So I'm just going to say we're about at 125 for males. And then females are right on this bar here, which is, and I can't draw a straight line for right now, 100. So we're just going to add these two together, and we get 225. Let's go 225 and check. Yay! All right, let's do one more of these. Next. Okay. There are 3 libraries in Tomsville. Each library has fiction and nonfiction books available. So this one is almost identical to what we did on the explanation page. So the only difference is the name of the libraries here. So we still have the number of books going up to the side. We have Central, Hillside, and Coast for the libraries. And then we have fiction and nonfiction. So again, you can look up here for your key for what the colors mean. All right, which libraries have more nonfiction books than fiction books? So we want more nonfiction, which is the striped bar, than fiction. So this one works because this bar is higher. This one does not work because it goes right through the orange bar. And Coast works because the striped bar is taller than the orange bar. So we have 2 on that one. We have Central and Coast. All right, next one says, which library has more than 1,200 nonfiction books? So we want to go to 1,200 here, and I'm going to draw a line. So this is the 1,200 mark, or the 1,200 mark. And I want to know which library has more than that mark for nonfiction, which is the striped bar. So only one of them goes above that line. So we would click on Coast. All right, estimate the total number of books at Hillside. Let's clear that out. So Hillside. So we need to take a look at this. So we're going to come over here. So this looks like a little more than half, halfway between the 1,200 and the 900. So we need to figure out what is the halfway mark. So first, how many numbers are between? So if I subtract this, I get 3, and I didn't do my barring. I just did 12 minus 9 is 3. And then I want to do my halfway, so I divide by 2 and I get 150. So it would be reasonable. I could round this up to 1,200 because it's more than halfway. I'm not going to round it down this time. So I could round it up to 1,200, or I can take 150 away. Whoops, what am I writing here? Not 1,500. Silly, silly me. So I can take 150 away, and let's see, what do we get here? 10, 5, and 0, and 1. So I can write anything between 1,050 and 1,200. That's reasonable. So let's see. I think it's just barely above half. So I'm going to round it to 1,050. Just because that seems pretty darn close to me. So I want 1,050, and this is how many fiction books I have. So now I need to add my nonfiction books, which is 900. So total, I'm thinking I have about 1,950 books. So let's see if they like my answer there. Perfect. They liked it. We complete another one. Yay.